Hey guys, this is Torterrid, coach of the Terratorts, and I thought I'd hop on the hype train and sort of do a bit of a team analysis for everyone and sort of give my sort of opinions on it. So I thought first of all I'll quickly go over my team because I've already talked about it a bit in my team analysis. But I think my team is pretty good. I think I've got really good hazard control in like the Fog and Polion, Rapispin, Terrapagos. I think I've got good speed tiers, especially with the round 7 Iron Bolt. That was kind of crazy. I was tempted to not get Iron Bolt till the very last round because I thought it'd be funny. But after Torterra got sniped, I was like, I'm gonna get Boulder and play it safe. But I've got Terra Rhyperia, which a lot of people, including myself, think it's gonna be a very good Terramon. Just being able to just get rid of that crippling typing's gonna be great. And then just some really consistent mons like Sizzle, Landorus, just no BS, they're gonna do good. Yeah, I'd say the biggest strengths on my team are probably the hazard control. It's not really bothered about toxic spikes at all. I'd say it has really good hazard control, pretty good speed tiers, and I'd say the biggest is that this is quite a bulky team. I'd say it's one of the bulkier teams in the draft with all of these mons. I can run a bulky set if I want, even Jump Bluff. I could run Subseed, my boss if I could run Intimidate, and then Iron Boulder gets Iron Defense, and it's got similar bulk stats to Empoleon. Don't sleep on it. But yeah, I think I've got a pretty well balanced team. I'd say the biggest weakness is probably the I have quite a few ground weaknesses. So I've got 4 ground weaknesses, but saying that, I don't really count Rhyperia because I'm pretty much going to be tearing that straight away to get rid of this crap typing. So I've got 3 ground weaknesses, but I've also got 2 immunities. So I think as long as I'm not bringing these 3 into, you know, say I'm going against Garchomp, I'm probably not going to bring all 3 of these to that game. I'll probably end up bringing Landorus and Latias. So I think as long as I'm not bringing all my ground weaknesses at once, I think I should be alright. But I'd say that is probably the biggest weakness. I'm trying to think what else. Um, can't think of anything else off the top of my head. But yeah, I think this is. I mean, obviously I don't have any draft league experience prior, but I think this is a pretty strong team, and I'm quite happy with what I've drafted. So here I'll probably start from the top left, and we'll go down. So we've got the California Panchams, and this team. I think the biggest compliment I give to this team is I'm glad I don't have to fight it before playoffs, because these top 3 months especially threats. Like the fact as well that Iron Valiant could be special or physical. All the fact these 3 could all be special or physical as well makes it very hard to prep. It's not like you can just chuck on an AV and just wall them because they could be scale shot, D dance cure, or just close combat Valiant. So I think these 3 mons definitely carry this draft because these are just insane. The best Fairy Steel Dragon Core in the entire draft easily. And then down here, you've got some still pretty good mons like Galarian Weezing, pretty solid. Rotom Heat, really good. Kilowatt Troll, from what I've seen, is a top Terra Captain or Terra Band in most leagues. And then Blastoise, pretty good mon, gives you a spinner or it can be Shell Smash. Zarude's a cool mon. I've not really had any experience with Zarude, but it looks like it's got pretty good stats. Quad weak to U-turn isn't great, but gives you a nice grass type to work with. Terra Golurk I'm interested in because it's not one that immediately jumps out to me at being strong, but I'm a big Golurk fan and I've used Choice Band Golurk a lot in NU, so I know that mon can put in work. So I think Terra Ghost Poltergeist, I'm very looking forward to seeing that just one shot mons it shouldn't. Farigiraf, gives you some support, great typing. That could have definitely been a potential Terra Captain. And then Kamala just as I don't know what Kamala's gonna do. I guess it's gives you something to absorb status moves. Could have rapid spin. Maybe like Rapspin Bulk Up, something like that. I'm not really sure what Kamal would do, but overall, I think this is one of the strongest teams in the draft, I'd say. So yeah, biggest strengths definitely these top three. For biggest weakness, maybe I'd maybe say the biggest weakness is like a lot of the like because I imagine you mostly bring like these three mons to every game, and then probably kill a watchful a lot, and then sometimes go lurk, and then like two two of these last four, and then, I guess maybe Frigraph as well. But I'd say maybe the biggest weakness is like three of your best ones here are weak to Stealth Rock, and then like Blastoise is a decent spinner, but it's not the best. It's not like a Great Tusk, Iron Treads type of thing. So I think maybe like Stealth Rocks might be a good way to try and like combat this, especially cure him. But overall, very strong team. I'm glad I don't have to fight it. Next, we've got the Miami Infernape, and I think this is also up there as a contender for like one of the strongest teams in my opinion. So you got Dragapult, insanely adaptable, good mon. Love Tyranitar Excadrill, the best of friends. You've got really good offense in Azelf Infernape. And then down here you've got some solid lower tier defensive mons like Overquill, like Gastrodon and Raquinid, Arboliva. Also interesting Terra Captains. I'd say overall I think this is a pretty solid team. I don't really see any sort of one type that sort of destroys this team. I go like, oh, fighting's going to T-Tar Excadrill, but then you're always going to have Dragapult, and then like Thundurus as a and that. Overall, I think this is a pretty solid team. If I had to say for the any weaknesses I've had for this team, I don't know if I'd say this is a weakness, but maybe something to consider. It's just that like all the Terramons are like shit slow as fuck. So he doesn't really have a Terramon that's like a Kilowatt Troll or a Cinccino. It's like a really fast speed tier. But other than that, I think it's pretty solid. I mean, saying that, none of my fast, not none of my Terra Captains are super fast. But I think the fact that he's got very slow Terra Captains might be something. But I mean, we'll see. I mean, Gastrodon, Storm Drain, Terra Ground sounds pretty sick. That sounds pretty cool. Munchlax, don't have a clue what that's going to do other than like Eviolite and be annoying, I guess. But also has like really good hazards with Overquill or Raquinid for webs and all the spikes. Easily gets Stealth Rock with like I think Infernape still gets Stealth Rock, but obviously like Gastrodon gets I think Gastrodon got spikes this gen as well. And then like Drill T-Tar gets Stealth Rock. And yeah, I think this is gonna be a pretty solid team. I'm trying to think what else. I think obviously having the sand is also going to help against like the Sun team, for example. I don't think there's any other teams that are really running weather, but yeah, I think that's a pretty solid team. I think two very strong teams to start. Over here we're going to the House of Mouse, and looking at this at a glance, I think this is a pretty good team. I think this is a pretty solid team. I think Gouging Fire, I've not really used it, but it looks like a very good mon. Like, just having, like, strong fire, dragon stab, it looks hella bulky, gets recovery, gets the protect move that burns. I could see you bringing that a few weeks, because that's, like, sort of a surprise factor. Enamorous, like, second best offensive fairy behind Valiant. Then, down here, uh, hmm. Like, Cinderace, good ass mon, but when I first saw these three, I sort of assumed it might have been a Sun team, because I was like, oh, I feel like Gouging Fire, obviously you don't have to run it on Sun, but I think the fact it gets Sun boosted stab and Photosynthesis makes it a lot better on Sun. So I think maybe having like a Ninetales could have worked, especially like Cinderace and Gouging Fire. But I get if you're like not wanting to run Weather. I think Rabombi round 4 is an interesting pick. So now, obviously Rabombi gets like sticky webs and that. So I mean sticky webs is good. Then you've got like Miss Magius, and I know Miss Magius was sort of a contender for like a Terra Captain, but I think even without Terra, I think Miss Magius is a pretty solid mon. It's basically just like slightly worse Gengar. It's just slightly worse but cheaper Gengar, but still has Levitate. So Miss Maggie is pretty solid. I think it just has 105 in both specials and speed. So like it could even run like specially bulky like AV, and that's quite adaptable. Big fan of Miss Magius. Tentacruel, pretty solid mon. Gets rapid spin, flip turn, knock off, absorbs toxic spikes, which is nice. Yeah, pretty solid mod. It's like I was considering when I was considering like my bulky water, I was like between like sort of Blastoise, Tentacruel, Milotic, that type of thing. So Tentacruel, pretty solid mod, gives a nice bit of hazard control to the team. Oh, also Miss Magius makes gives you like a spin blocker as well, considering you're gonna. I'm assuming you're gonna be setting Sticky Web up quite a lot, and then maybe Toxic Spikes. But here, Cinccino's Terra Captain. Big fan of this. I like Cinccino. Terra normal tail slaps are gonna hit very hard. Whether it's skill link or I'm a big fan of just technician loaded dice, because that hits hard as hell. But technician tail slaps are gonna hit very hard. Technician bullet seeds are gonna hit very hard. Stellar type. I'm gonna say I'm not a believer in the Stellar, but I'm open to being proven wrong. I could see it working with like Cinccino with 4 coverage moves, but me personally, I think I'd probably go for like maybe just like a Terra Rock to boost Rock Blast, or maybe a Terra like Fighting or Fire to hit steals. Maybe Fighting, because I think Cinccino might get low kick, so it'd let it like nuke a steal out of nowhere with like strong fighting move. But I'm open to being proven wrong on Stella, but I think Stella is kind of ass. Galastria, this mon is going to be a monster. Obviously, it has to have base Terra. Terra Water is going to make it bulky. Terra Fighting, I guess that's for like close combat or like body press. I think I'd probably run like Terra Electric just for like strong, consistent type with only like one weakness. But I mean, I could see Terra fighting work. It lets it like nuke steel types even better. You know, if someone tries to swap in like a I don't know like a Heatran, just get Terra fighting CC and just die. Like that could be pretty big. Breloom, that's a good mon. Spore stuff gets Technician Mac Punch. Uh, I'm hoping to see I want to see a Focus Punch. That's what I'm hoping. I want to see some crazy Focus Punch plays with this mon. Gets like Toxic Heal, Sub Focus Punch. But yeah, Breloom pretty solid mon. Can't really go wrong with that. Lantern. I'm a big Lantern fan. Oh, I'd say one thing with this team is maybe I don't know if I'm a big fan of having Lantern and Tentacruel. Just because I think Tentacruel's a good bulky water, but I don't think it's one of like the best. I think like Swampert and Empoleon and Milotic are a bit better. So I think having Lantern and Tentacruel might be a bit like you're not going to want to bring both because they have like common weaknesses to like they're both weak to ground, for example. But saying that they don't share like the electric or grass weaknesses. But in my opinion, I'd maybe like I don't know, because Tentacruel's good because it gives the rapid spin and the absorb toxic spikes. But saying that, I am a Lantern fan. I do like Lantern. I love using it in lower tiers. Get Scald, Discharge, Volt Switch. I know he was wondering on making it a Terra Captain, but I think it was definitely the right choice making Glastrier a Terra Captain more, because that just big meatball of stats is just going to be like a lot harder to kill as a water and fighting type. Alolan Vulpix, kind of just like a whatever mon, but it's like I get it because with Glastrier lets you, you know, you set Hail, you can use Aurora Veil, and then Ice Defense Boost Glastrier is going to be very hard to kill through Veil, and it's going to hit hard as hell. So I could see that being tough. And then Berserker, I think Berserker's kind of ass to be honest. And I think it's just not that good as a steal. Maybe in my opinion, I'd maybe trade in like Lantern and Berserker to maybe try and get a better steal. I'm not sure what ones are around. Maybe like Caparagia or something. I'm not sure off the top of my head. But overall, I think this is a pretty good team. I'd say the key weaknesses is I guess I just think like these bottom three are kind of not the strongest, as well as there's a bit of overlap with Gouging Fire and Cinderace for like strong physical fire type. But saying that, Cinderace can always change its type, so I can't really hold that against them. I guess the other thing I'd say is like It seems like they're going to be quite reliant on sticky web, and they've got Miss Maggie's as a spin blocker, but uh, I don't know. Like Miss Maggie's obviously blocks spin, but I don't know if it'd be worth investing in like a bulkier ghost that's like a bit safer at block and spin that won't just die to like a knockoff. But saying that, I guess Miss Magius gives a bit more offensive pressure when you're spin blocking, so just a bit of a personal preference. But here we'll go on to the next team. We got the Scarfed Star Avias, and not gonna lie, I kind of wish it had Volcarona just to complete the Moth trio. But overall, this looks like a pretty solid team. So you got Deoxys, that's gonna give all your hazards. It's gonna do like spikes and stealth rock and that. Could run offensive, like physical special, like superpower, ice beam, psycho boost, that sort of thing. This monster's gonna be annoying, like setting up hazards and being fast as hell. Iron Treads. I've used Iron Treads a lot in UU. It's a really just good, solid mon. I've seen it in draft. It's really good. Like AV Volt switch as a pivot with rapid spin, offensive booster energy. This mon is like quite adaptable and it's very fast, even especially for like a mon that you can also use like defensively. So that's like I'm a big fan of Iron Treads, and then Primarina I think is also a really good pick. Water Fairy's really good. I don't know if Primarina gets Flip Turn. I think it does, but like Calm Mind into Water and Fairy Stab's really good. I think it gets Draining Kiss. So like Primarina, one of the better like bulky waters in the draft, I'd say. Then Iron Moth, Slitherwing sort of both give like a special and a physical breaker. And then also having like different types. So, like Iron Moth will absorb Toxic Spikes. I know it doesn't look like it will because it does look floating, but that's going to absorb the Toxic Spikes. Slitherwing, I'm a big Slitherwing fan. This one, gives a bit of priority with First Impression, Stab Close Combat, Flare Blitz. This one hits pretty hard. Honestly, looking at these two, these two would benefit quite well in like Sun or something with just like Fire Stab and Protosynthesis. But these two are both like solid, pretty solid good mons. Bishop is an interesting Terra Captain. So I'd say Terra Ghost on Bishop I think is a really good call because if you're running Deoxys, I think you probably want a Ghost to spin block. So having Bishop as a Ghost option I think is a really good idea because especially with, like if you run Eviolite on this, it's gonna be bulky as hell. So I'm interested to see what items they run on Bishop because like I think Eviolite's probably going to be the best, but also like this has been around since Gen 5 and it's been really good without Eviolite. So don't be afraid to run like just Terra Dark, Choice Band, Sucker Punch. Just this is just you can just play it like King Gambit, but it can Terra into a Ghost. So I'm interested to see how this Bishop will do. Noivern gives like a really good speed tier. I think it's 126 off the top of my head, something high like that. But this team has really good speed tiers. And obviously, like Deoxys, fastest mon in the game. Noivern, really fast. Imoth's around like 110. I think Eintred's like 106, something like that. It's like a lot of really like fast mons on this team. And also a really good priority. And like you got Sucker Punch, First Impression, Grassy Glide. So this team is not struggling for speed. And Unburden Graphii, I think, is going to put in a fair bit of work. Also, Rillaboom combos really well with like before you've terrored Bishop, being able to get rid of its ground weakness. Reduces Iron Moth's ground weakness to a 2 time. Well, Earthquake weakness to a 2 times, but I think it'll probably still die. But I think that's going to help Treads quite a lot. And I think Rotom's an interesting Terra Captain. Obviously, like Terra Electric Steel Levitate, so it works pretty well. Terra Ice, just to be like your typical fast electric Terramon that hits ground types type of thing. And then Trumbeak, I don't know what the hell Trumbeak's going to do. I don't think it'll come to a game. If it does, I'll be surprised, but I don't know what that mon does. Here we got the ridiculous Reuniclus. I remember watching this team get drafted, and my first thought was like, when you had like your first 6, was I think the mon with like the lowest offensive stat was like 120. Like all of these hit hard as hell. And obviously, like Heatran Zapdos can be bulky as hell as well if they want to be. So this has got a lot of offense going for it, even though it's defensive mons. And then Whimsicott's an interesting terror. I've not really seen Whimsicott in draft with Terra, but I mean it's fast and just like choice specs. Terra, Grass, Moonblast sounds good. Steel to live poison moves and ground to hit steals. I'm assuming. So that seems pretty good. Also like Prankster Encore and like Prankster moves is gonna be pretty handy. King Gambit, it's like obviously incredible mon, but I think it's obviously not as good in draft because you see King Gambit, you can attack on fighting moves, and from what I've seen, it doesn't seem as good in draft. But I think it's still like a solid mon, and if you can just play around its big 4 times weakness, it could be very good. I think that's just gonna test how well you can sort of scout for those random mons that could attack on low kick and that sort of stuff. Toxicroak's interesting terror. I will say I'm not sure if I'm a big fan on the Toxicroak specifically like Pterodox Sucker Punch, just because like you already have King Gambit for strong Dark Sucker Punch. But I think Terra Fire Toxicroak is cool with like Dry Skin, and I don't really know what else Toxicroak does really. Like it's Sword Stance, Gunk Shot, Drain Punch. I don't really know what this mon's gonna do that much, but I'm interested to see what it does. And then Drifblim, potential Terra Captain. I think Drifblim is a pretty cool mon. I've used it before. Strength Sap makes it surprisingly hard to kill. Like Flare Boost, Shadow Balls, and gets good coverage and like T-Bolt. I think Drifblim's a bit of a slept-on mon. It's pretty solid. Oh, I just realised I just kind of looked at all these and just skipped down here. Latios, it's Latios. It's going to drop Dracos. It's going to be insane. Insane threat. Also, I think this gen it got flip turn, so it now gets a pivot move. I think it. What else did it get? Oh, obviously its signature move got buff, so now it can just break through like special walls if it gets some Spadef drops. Heatran, really good. I don't think it has Eruption anymore, so you can't discard Eruption, unfortunately. But can run Flame Body, Burn Stuff, Lava Plume, could be Flash Fire, Magma Storm trap sets, really good defensive mon, and then it combos really well with Zapdos and Latios having ground immunities. Zapdos, uh, these two are making me go, oh, I really don't want to bring a physical attacker to this team or run protective pads because you're gonna get Flame Body and you're gonna get static. But I think these three really complement each other quite well. Ogerpon, pretty solid mon. Grass and Water Stab. Yeah, the Ogerpon's just good. It just gives a good speed tier, matches Latios speed tier 110. Mamoswine, really strong breaker. Hard to switch in, near impossible to switch in safely. Gives a bit of priority as well in like strong Ice Shard. And yeah, Mamoswine's really solid mon. I'm looking. I want to see. I want to see this Mamoswine go crazy in some games. And then also getting rid of Mamoswine so you don't have to fight it with Heatran's nice. Getting rid of one of the better like offensive ground types. And then Glamora, so another mon Heatran doesn't have to get Earth powered by. Glamora's gonna set up Toxic Spikes and maybe Stealth Rock. Maybe you'll run like a Meteor Beam set. I mean, I'd be hyped if you just led this and then just with like choice specs and nuke something. I think that'd be pretty hype. But yeah, I think this is a pretty solid team. I think this is a very threatening team. Like all the mons hit hard. Like there's not a single mon I see in this team and I go like, oh, that's like a really passive mon. Like the mon with the lowest offenses is like Whimsicott, but it's gonna be Terra Fairy, so it's gonna hit hard, or like Drifblim, which can be Flare Boost and can hit decently hard. But like especially these top mons, these all hit like trucks. I'd say that's the biggest strength. I'd say the biggest weakness is probably it's quite reliant on like Glamora rapid spinning to get rid of hazards. Because I think Drifblim might get Defog, but then you'd have to run Boots Drifblim with Defog, and then it doesn't get like a pivot move to get out of there or anything. But then it's like if you lead Glamora and then sort of like Suicide, do some damage to it to get some Toxic Spikes up, and suddenly you don't really have much hazard control. Actually, I don't know if Zapdos still has Defog, to be honest. If Zapdos still has Defog, then ignore that. I'm pretty sure Latios doesn't get it, because I know Latias doesn't. But yeah, I think that's a pretty solid team. For the next team, we have the Las Vegas Corviknights. So for this team, I think these top four mons look incredible. I mean, this is quite a top-heavy team in terms of these top four are incredible. Like, I don't have to tell you, Great Tusk is good. This mon can run whatever. Just don't run Supercell Slam. I saw it got that move. Don't run that move. That move's ass. But great hazard control immediately because you have like the best spinner in the game, arguably best spinner tied with like Terrapagos and maybe Eintreds. I think Eintreds has kind of slept. I think Eintreds is almost as good as Tusk, especially in draft. But Tusk, incredible hazard control. When I saw him get a Glow King, I knew the Baxcalibur was coming. Classic combo. Baxcalibur is going to hit hard. It's going to be hard to switch into. Greninja gives you a really good speed tier, and it's just going to hit hard. You never know if it's going to be Protean or Battle Bond. Glowbro is going to take hits. It's going to let Baxcalibur in for free, and Baxcalibur is going to kill something. But these top four mons, I think, are going to come to most games. Serena also gives like an extra bit of hazard control, so you're not forced to run Rapid Spin on Great Tusk if you want to run like Choice Band for attacks or I don't know, like Bulk Up without Rapid Spin. But it just means you're not locked into Rapid Spin. But Serena, it gets Queenly Majesty so it can stop priority moves, strong power whips. Other than that, I think Serena's kind of like a fine mon. It seems like one of those mons like it rapid spins, and maybe does like a knockoff. Maybe gets like a power up off and then just sort of dies. But maybe I'm just asked with Serena. Staraptor, love Staraptor. I want to see this mon just Brave Bird stuff and double edge and close combat stuff. I wonder if you'll bring any sort of heat, like like I don't know, Endeavor quick attack. Bring Fear Staraptor one week if you're like super scared of one mon. That could be funny. For the Terra captains, Tinkerton or Electros are interested. Tinkerton, I'm very interested to see this Terra because I've watched a couple draft leagues. I've never seen this mon Terra. I'm guessing because it already has like a really good natural typing. But I'm interested to see how well it does as Terra. If it's going to be like supportive T-Wave Stealth Rock, or if you're just going to Terra Steel Gigaton Hammer. That sounds pretty funny. But I think solid Terra choices. Steel for the Gigaton, Water because you always want Water or Fairy most of the time on like a bulky mon, and then flying to just ignore earthquakes makes sense. So I think that's pretty solid. And then the other Terramon Electros is an interesting one. So it's like a bit of a slower electric, but obviously Terra Electric's good, even though you had to choose that because you still have no weaknesses, just buffs like your Volt switches and all your electric moves. Terra Ground's interesting. I don't know why you've went Terra Ground specifically, to be honest. I'm not sure. I think I personally would have went Terra like Poison or Steel just to sort of take advantage of that Levitate. Just so it's like, Terra Poison will Levitate, you're only weak to Psychic is pretty nice. And it also stops you getting Toxic if you want to run like a Bulk Up Drain Punch set. Or like, Coil Drain Punch. Or like Steel, because it also stops you getting Poison, gives you all those resistances. And then Terra Fairy, if you just want to like take on a dragon or something, like your Terra Fairy and then just like Terra Blast the dragon, or like, I think Electros gets Ice Punch, just Ice Punch like a Salamence or something. Volcanion. Interesting mon. I'm curious to see what this mon does, because I've used this mon a bit in like Gen 8 and it was pretty fun. But, and I think you've got pretty good hazard control to support it, because I feel like Volcanion really struggles with Stealth Rock. It's like, you want to send it in and do like strong like Choice Spec Steam Eruptions and Overheats and Fire Blasts and that. But you don't want to be taking a quarter of your health every turn. But I think you've got good enough hazard control, especially because you have Tusk to sort of support Volcanion. And I'm interested to see how well that one does. If you're going to run like offensive or do like a defensive set that just burns stuff. I'm curious to see what you'll do with that mon. And then Wheezing is just like a bulky just says no to bulky like physical mons. Well, to physical attackers. It comes in, it levitates, or you could run neutralizing gas. That could be interesting. But I mean, most of the time run levitate. Might run neutralizing gas for like specific stuff. Off the top of my head, maybe like I don't know, like a Meowscarada to get rid of Protean, something like that. But it comes in, it Will-O-Wisps, it can clear smog, it can set toxic spikes. Weezing's pretty solid mon. Could be a bit passive, but it's pretty solid, man. I was thinking this team might be a bit weak to Toxic Spikes, and I remember Glowbro, so actually, yeah, it's fine against Toxic Spikes. Yeah, I think that's a pretty solid team. I'd say the best and sort of worst thing about this team is like it's quite top heavy, and like I think these four mons like clearly the like come into most games. So I think you'll probably just end up bringing like these four Tinctor or Electros, and then probably one of these, like maybe like Staraptor or Volcanion or something. But I think overall it's a pretty solid team. I think Baxcalibur's going to be hard to switch into. But yeah, pretty solid team. Next we've got the Fairfield Ferrothorns, and I'm not sure whether to team analyze this or because I know you've got some changes coming for week 2. But I'll quickly go over this and just mention them. So overall, this team, I think this is pretty solid. Roaring Moon, really like strong dragon, gives like good knockoff. Gengar gives really fast mon, strong like ghost and poison. Gives you fighting immunity to complement Roaring Moon. Absorbs toxic spikes. Metagross, really bulky. Steel mon's pretty good. I think Metagross you can run like agility offensive with weakness policy. Or you could just run like AV bulky, or I know it just got a knockoff, which is pretty big. What else did we get? I think it got like Psychic Fangs, which can make it good against. Well, I mean, there's no Alolan Ninetales drafted, but anyone that wants to run like Screen Psychic Fangs is pretty good for. But also gives a bit of priority in like Bullet Punch, which is nice. Ursaluna Blood Moon, this one's bulky as hell and hits hard as hell. This one kind of broken. Regieleki Galvantula, I'm not as keen on both of these, just because I think like they both kind of do the same thing of like. Well, I mean, Regieleki they're a bit different. Regieleki's super fast and like really strong electric moves, whereas Galvantula is like still fast but has a bit of coverage and the bigger thing sets Sticky Web. And then Sticky Web I think will especially help mons like Metagross and then I guess Gengar against like even faster threats. And then obviously like Roaring Moon. So I think Sticky Web will be pretty nice. Conkeldurr gives like Regieleki also gives a bit of hazard control, rapid spin. But Conkeldurr can defog, but I don't think it's a great defogger. I think with Conkeldurr, why am I calling it Conkeldurr? I always call it Conkeldurr. With Conkeldurr, I think you never really want to defog with it. I think you just want to hit stuff with it. It's got insane attack, 3 great abilities, so you never know if it's Iron Fist, Guts, or Sheer Force. So I think that helps because it makes it a bit harder to prep for. Gets good coverage in all the punches. I think Conkeldurr's really solid mon. Terra Regirock I think is a cool pick. So Terra Grass and Flying are interesting. So obviously both of them get rid of like your. I think Terra Grass is a pretty good choice. Gets rid of your grass weakness and water weakness and ground weakness. So I think Terra Grass complements us perfectly. And then Flying makes sense for like just being a ground immune. I think I'd probably go with the same Terrace. I'd maybe change Flying for something like. Honestly, my greedy ass probably go Terra Fighting just for like insane body predators. Well, that's just me. And then Minior, big Minior fan, but I know he ain't staying unfortunately. Sorry, Minior. Dusknoir, big Dusknoir fan. That's my favorite ghost right there. I'm not gonna lie, I don't think Dusknoir's a great mon. I've tried using it, and it's been underwhelming. Not in draft anyway, but just in like general battles. But I hope you put in work with it. With like Terra Ghost, Choice Band Poltergeist sounds strong. Also gets like priority with Shadow Sneak. I hope you put work in with this mon because I'm a big Dusknoir fan. I believe in it. Gets good coverage like Ice Punch, Earthquake, T Punch. Gets like some support moves like Curse, Pain Split. I've tried running this with like as a Terra, and then like you can Terra and then use Curse to set up as a non-ghost type is an interesting option to think of. But yeah, Dusknoir, cool man. Sneasel, pretty solid 5-pointer I think. It's quite fast. It's just a budget Weavile basically, but budget Weavile's still a good mon because Weavile's really good. And then Alone Dugtrio I think's kind of ass, and I know it's not staying. I'm trying to remember what the swaps were. I'm pretty sure you were swapping. I I know you're swapping Minior and Doug Trio. I think Regieleki. I know you're getting Chi-Yu Toxapex. I think Gengar was going as well. But I think Chi-Yu is gonna be like insane wall break, and it's gonna be. I don't know. From what I've seen, a lot of people seem to be saying it's kind of overrated in draft. But I'm interested to. I mean, I'm interested to see how strong Chi-Yu will hit. But that and Toxapex will give you like a really solid defensive backbone. Because my biggest flaw with this team, but before you're making changes, is well, I guess this might still apply after changes. I think it's quite ground weak. Because like you go like Gengar ground weak, Metagross ground weak, Regieleki ground weak, Galvantula it's ground neutral, but it's got like little defense, so effectively. Regirock I'm not going to count because you'll probably tear out your ground weakness. But you've not really got a ton of like ground immunities or resistances. Like Ursaluna's bulky can take them, but it doesn't want to take them all the time because it's not a resist. So I think you'd be quite reliant on that Regirock tearing out a rock. But overall, I think that's a pretty good team, and I can see you going pretty far with it. The next team, the Aberdeen Iron Bundles. So this is the best team in the draft because they've got the best mon in the draft right here. Nah, but this team I think is pretty well balanced, pretty solid. So you've got first of all really good speed tiers and Darkrai Sneasler, and then also gives you like a strong, fast like special attacker and physical attacker. So these mons are gonna make this team very hard to outspeed, which is good. And then even after that, you've got solid speed tiers because like Raikou and like Honestly, I've not looked at Ironcrown enough to know its stats. I think it's not that fast though. I mean, it's like 80, 90-ish, but like you've got three pretty fast Montu, which I think is good. So you got good speed tiers. I think you've easily got the best like wish support out of everyone. You got like two of the best wish passes. I was tempted to get a Lola Mola because I was like, wish flip turn with regenerator sounds incredible, and then floor just really good fairy type. I can see you've got like a psychic terrain mode, and I think Torterra actually combos pretty well with that because you set the psychic terrain for Iron Crown, and then I'm assuming Iron Crown gets expanding force, and you just spam that. But then also that means like if you have terrain up and you shell smash, suddenly you can't get priority moved, which is like usually the main way to stop shell smash. And then the terrors here, I will say I think the terrors for this team might be the weakest part because I think these are all sort of like okay terrors, but none of them are like great. Like Cragganol is like as like Terra Steel for example is like okay, it's a decent like bulky mon, but it's still got like zero defense type of thing. Or like Sandslash is like okay, it can Terra Ghost to get spikes up and like spin block, but that's kind of it. And then like Braviary, like Braviary I think was probably the strongest one out of them. I don't know, maybe just because I have a habit of using Braviary literally as just a defog U-turn machine. But you could run like Sheer Force or Choice Band or whatnot. I'm interested to see if you get a bit more experimental with Braviary than I do. And then it's the last round Cerule Edge, an interesting choice. Could see that also working well with Psychic Terrain if you're gonna do like the weak armor focus slash SD type of stuff. But overall, I think this is a pretty solid team. There's nothing that jumps out at me. I'd say the weakness is probably I think the Terra Captains, but there's nothing that really jumps out to me as like it's really weak to this. Maybe like ground because like you got one, two, three, four of like your like higher tier mons are weak to ground, and then your only like ground resist is like Torterra. You have Levitate Cryogonal and a like Flying Brave, right? So I guess you're all right as long as you bring like one of these two Terra Captains. You should be all right for ground or like Torterra. But I'm assuming you're gonna run Shell Smash Torterra more. But don't sleep on Iron Defense Body Press. Iron Defense Body Press like Leech Seed's pretty strong. And also I've found because I've probably used Torterra more than most is don't feel like you're locked into Shell Smash because also people might prep Mirror Herb and that. But like I've ran Torterra even after it's got Shell Smash with just Choice Band because people will switch in something. They'll play assuming it's Shell Smash, and then suddenly when they just get nuked by a choice band headlong rush, it can very much catch people off guard. So I'm interested. I'm hoping you bring Torterra a lot. I want to see you put in work with it, make me proud. But I hope you don't feel like locked into Shell Smash, because obviously Shell Smash is the best Torterra set, but there is a good bit of surprise factor. Like Iron Defense Body Press can be solid, Choice Band. Uh, I've tried to use mixed with like Scorching Sands Giga Drain. It wasn't great. I wouldn't advise that, but you can try it if you want. The ideas there. There's Sand Tomb, Leech Seed, Trapping sets. Like Torterra are quite adaptable. But overall, I think this is a pretty good team. I like the Wish support a lot. I'd say my only thing would maybe say I think Iron Crown's pretty bulky. Is I'd maybe prefer like one really big like bulky bruiser on this team, maybe like a Iron Hands, like a Rhyperia type of thing. Just because like just so you're passing these wishes into like more bulkier monsters that can make better use of it than like I feel like passing a wish into like an Iron Hands is gonna be a lot bigger in impact than passing it into like a Sneasel type of thing. But overall, pretty good team. We got the Bullet Punch City over here. And first of all, I'm noticing a distinct lack of Bullet Punch. Nah, but overall, I think this is a pretty good team. So you got your Meow and Bundle are both like two really scary mons, similar to the previous team where you've just led with like a insanely strong like physical attacker, insanely strong special attacker. I hope we get like a Hydro Pump miss counter because I just could not draft this mon because I don't want to. I'm too scared of Hydro Pump. But you got Sylveon, bulky, like Fairy, could be offensive or defensive. Also, I feel like this team, I just did not mention that like Raikou is like, I think Raikou for a 12 pointer is a steal. Like, Raikou's a threat. Like Carmine, T-Bolt, Scald, Shadow Ball, really good mono. Like Specs Volt Switch, Raikou, incredible. But back to this team. Sylveon and like Moltres, two like really good like defensive mons that also hit pretty hard. Fortress, that's just gonna be setting up your spikes, your stealth rock, a volt switch in, just hazards pretty much. Flygon I think's a pretty cool Terra Captain. Terra Poison's pretty cool, similar to what I mentioned with the what was the other levitating Terra Rotom. Or was it Rotom I was on about? No, Electros I was on about. Where I think if you've got a levitate mon you're Terran, I think it's probably better getting something that sort of takes advantage of that a bit more. So I like the Terra Poison. Terra Ground, I think Terra Ground or Dragon would have worked. Like, it's just, do you want to spam Outrage or Earthquake? And Earthquake's, like, sort of safer to spam. And then Terra Fairies, just, I'm guessing, just to beat other dragons. So that makes sense. Iron Hands, I love Iron Hands. I love how bulky this mon is. I love how hard it hits. I was kind of sad when Torterra got sniped, because I was like, oh, I might get Iron Hands. But then I was like, I don't want another ground weakness. But Iron Hands, I think Iron Hands is a really good mon. And I think it'll come really well if you pass in like Sylveon wishes into it. Similar to what I said about like this team with Wish Pass. And it's Avalugg is an interesting Terra Captain. So Water and Fairy makes sense. Water just strong defensive. Well, yeah, just the two, in my opinion, best Terra types just across most mons. Fairy lets you resist fighting. I'm assuming it's just gonna Iron Defense Body Press, so I think it might be a bit like linear in what Avalugg could do, but you never know. There might be some weird sets I'm not thinking of. Uxie I think's an interesting pick because that suddenly makes me go, oh, you just have like a solid trick room mode here with like offensive Avalugg, Iron Hands, and then like maybe like offensive Sylveon. Like you have like a solid trick room mode here. So and then Uxie is bulky as hell. U-turn pivots can spread the status with T-wave and that. Uxie pretty solid mon. Ferret. I'm not a Ferret believer. I'm not gonna lie, but it's cute. I'll give it that. It's cute, and I hope it puts in work. I'd be hyped if someone gets like we see a Ferret tidy up sweep. I'm hyped for it. Monkey Dory's an interesting mon, so that can spread a bit of poison. It's pretty fast, hits fairly hard, gets U-turn for pivoting. Poison on U-turn's pretty nice. So I think Monkey Dory is a pretty solid mon. And then Sableye, so that gives you like a bit more priority with like some Prankster, Will-O-Wisp, and whatnot. So I think Sableye could be a pretty decent one. Overall, I think it's like a pretty solid team. I'd say my biggest weakness with my team, with this team, I think, is I think a few too many of the mons are like specifically like really high defense, really low spadef, so you might be forced to sort of run AV a bit more. So like, I know I'm bundles offensive, but I'm pretty sure its defense is a lot higher than its spadef. And then that's the same for like Fortress, Iron Hands, and Avalugg all have like a lot lower spadef than the normal defense. Like obviously you have like Sylveon, which is like a really good spadef wall, and then like Uxie's bulky in both. But I feel like that might be something to consider when like I'm like if I'm prepping against this team, I might be more inclined to bring special attacks just because I can see a lot of like weaker spadef than defense in general. Like say I'm running Valiant, I'm not running close combat into when they could have Avalugg and Iron Hands. I'll just run Moonblast. But overall, pretty solid team. Next, we got the Sacramento King Shields. So for this team, I think this is probably the only one in the draft that beats mine in terms of bulk, because this team is bulky as hell. This team I might put up there as the most annoying to fight, because I think this team is gonna be. I don't know if it's gonna be the best. I think it's gonna be pretty good, but I think this team is gonna be annoying, because it's just gonna be. You got incredible Volt Turn. You got Spore. You got Rocky Helmet, Rough Skin. The Dunsparce is an insane Terramon. It's gonna glare stuff. It can get rocks. It can Boom Burst. Registeel is really hard to kill. Screamtail, similar to what I said about passing wishes with Sylveon to Pokemons like Iron Hands. I think Screamtail passing wishes into like Garchomp, Rotom, and Registeel is a really good combo. Mandibuzz, another just really bulky mon, gives some hazard control with Defog. Well, Tornadus has it as well, but it means you're not locked into using Defog Tornadus. You want to like choice specs and be offensive or something like that. Hisuian Typhlosion's a cool Terra Captain. I have no gauge on how good this is as a Terra Captain. I feel like I've never really seen this mon, but I'm hyped to see it. I want to see some Terrafire eruptions go crazy. That's pretty fun. Hitmontop gives like a rapid spinner if you don't want to run Defog. You could run like Technician offensive moves like Technician, Thief, Mach Punch, that sort of thing, or just like run offensive like Choice Band, close combat type of thing. So Hitmontop's pretty good, mon. And then Spidops gives you like a sticky web mode, which could be pretty good because, like, especially suddenly having like these bulky mons outspeeding you. But I don't know if sticky web's really needed on this team, to be honest. Just because I feel like sticky web, in my opinion, just works a bit better when you have like insanely strong but not as fast mons, like a sort of I don't know, like a Mabostiff or like a I don't know, I'm blanking. But I don't know. I feel like Sticky Web. Oops. I feel like Sticky Web, in my opinion, works a bit better when you've got like strong, slower physical or like special breakers to sort of take advantage of it. Like a Golden Go that can just outspeed and choice specs move stuff, or like a Gouging Fire that can just sort of go crazy outspeeding stuff with Flare Blitz. But also, I think Sticky Web's kind of not needed on this team because for a defensive team, this team's fast. Like Tornadus, Garchomp, Screamtail gives this like really good speed tiers, like 102, 111, 121, something like that, 120 something. So like you've got some pretty fast mons, but then like they're all insanely bulky. And then you've got two really good ground resists. Rotom Wash, incredible. I was looking at drafting this mon just because like this mon to me is like a glue. Like, I have a habit of like chucking Rotom Wash on like almost every OU team. It's too consistent. But like these are just all just solid mons. Like Garchomp, Rotom, Tornadus, like three like staple OU mons. Well, staple most of the time. Just Garchomp will rise back. Just you wait. Amoonguss gonna spore. It's gonna regenerate. It's gonna be. I think this team is going to be very annoying to fight because it's very bulky, but also you can't run super slow, otherwise you'll get outsped by Tornadus and Garchomp. But overall, I think this is a pretty solid team. Literally a rock solid team. Then we've got the Grand Canyon Gallades. So you've got Golden Go with like Clefable, Quavel, Dragalge. I think the best thing about this team is probably the Tinglu Golden Go. So Tinglu gets all your hazards, Golden Go, just obviously hazard just blocks clearing them, as well as Dragalge being able to set toxic spikes. So I think this got really good hazard setting and then like obviously like incredible spin blocking potential. Then you got Clefable, which is really good for like, oh, once you're setting up your hazards, they can't start setting up because you have one to wear Clefable. So I think these are all going to work really well together, and that's a really good core. Shaman, I think, is like kind of good, but also I don't know. I feel like Shaman's like good, maybe a bit underrated. Like, I think it still gets Earth power. It's fast and bulky, so like, well, it's 100 base speed and bulky. So like, you could run an annoying like Leech Seed set easily, or get Seed Flare but F drops. Embor, cool mon. I kind of wish it was a Terra Captain. I think it can Terra, I'm pretty sure. But Embor, it's like a strong physical breaker, reckless, wild charge. So I think it gets Supercell Slam, Flare Blitz. This mon's going to break through stuff. Same with like Dragalge, so you got physical and special breakers. Quaquaval, it looks insane in draft. It also gives you hazard removal, and it can just boost up and just clean games that aren't ready for it. Soon Electrode, really good Terra Captain, insane speed tier. I think these are like the perfect terrors for it. Just both of them let you hit Dragon that resist both your stabs, and also like Ice lets you hit like grounds that might not be weak to grass, like I don't know, like Landorus for example. Basculin, pretty solid mon, especially considering like that lets you choose all three forms. So like I think you can be like the White Stripe with Eviolite, and it's surprisingly bulky with Flip Turn as like a pivot, or you just run like Adaptability Wave Crash or Rockhead Wave Crash. Pretty solid breaker. Deoxys defense, I think. On one hand, I'm like I think this combos really well with Golden Go. On the other hand, I go like I think if you've already got Tinglu, you don't really need this to set spikes. But I mean, not saying like I'm pretty sure Deoxys can run other stuff other than spikes, even though it's a bit passive. But I think the best thing about Deoxys is it can teleport. So you can use this to teleport and get in like your Ember or your Golden Go in and just launch a strong attack. Knuckle Stack, that's gonna be an annoying mon. Terra, Poison and Water, interesting. I think poison makes sense, I guess. Actually, no. I was gonna say poison makes sense to not get poisoned, but your ability stops that. Instead of Terra Poison, I get that's to resist fighting. I think, in my opinion, I'd probably go Terra Ghost, just because your ability makes it so you're not weak to Ghost. So suddenly, like Ghost is neutral instead of being weak to it. So being a Ghost type that's neutral to Ghost, plus all Ghost types like immunities and resistances is nice. So I think that sort of combos quite well. And then Water makes sense, lets you just resist like water moves, and it's just solid defensive type. Then Ruffler, I don't think it's ever gonna come. Like gets defog, I guess, and that's it. So overall, I think this is a decent team, but I think it does have one glaring weakness, which I think this team has really bad speed tiers. Just because, like, it's soon Electrode, fast as hell, but then, other than that 150 base speed, like, the fastest mon is Shaman. So you've got a 50 base stat gap where, like, you've just not got, like, any mon stat speed. So, like, for example, if anyone has a mon that outspeeds Shaman with not being a plus speed nature, but is slower than that Electrode, there's no reason for them not to run that. Like, for example, if you run like offensive Tornadus, then you don't need to go plus speed nature because you're never going to outspeed Electrode, but you can just go plus special attacks, you'll outspeed everything else on the team type of thing. So I feel like that's going to be like a big challenge, and that's something I don't really like on this team that much. But I mean, Quaquaval might be able to sort of help patch that up because if it gets an Aqua Step, it's suddenly fast. Maybe just I feel like you might be forced to sort of run Choice Scarf on like Golden Go or something to sort of patch up that speed. But I mean, if you play it well, I think this could be a pretty good team. But I feel like that speed weakness is quite glaring. But overall, nice team. My team is the best because I made it. Nah, just joking. I already talked about my team. I think my team's pretty good. The Baltimore Blastoise. We got the two turtle teams right next to each other. I like how I've got a like the Infernape team to fight. That's like the rival fight from Sinnoh. I've got a fellow turtle starter team to fight, and then I've got my revenge. I'm gonna have to try and beat Torterra. That's gonna be heartbreaking, but the Baltimore Blastoise, I think this team is pretty solid. Like especially like these top like four mons. So Samurot's gonna set spikes and then annihilate incredible spin blocker. You can't defog it without giving it an SD boost effectively. Really just solid combination. Salamence, really consistent. You can run offensive D-Dance, you can run special, you can run defensive Intimidate. Just got off Moxie. Salamence really good, like pretty solid, good dragon. Pretty good round 3 pick, honestly. Isuian Zoroark, I think is really good. I think that's going to combo well with like Annihilate and also helping spin block. So like if they try and Shadow Ball Annihilate and it's actually Zoroark, and then or they try and Rapid Spin them on and it turns out to be Zoroark, could be quite good. Skarmory, that's gonna. I will say one thing about Skarmory is I'm not sure what you're gonna do because I feel like the best thing about Skarmory over Corviknight is it gets spikes, but you've already got Hisuian Samurott for that, so I don't think you need spikes. I'm guessing you're just gonna run like Iron Defense Body Press or like I don't think it gets U-turn actually. I think Corviknight only gets U-turn. But I'm interested to see what you do with Skarmory. I'd maybe go with Corviknight, but that's just because I really like pivot moves. You can probably tell from my teams: U-turn, Baton Pass, U-turn, Flip Turn. So I kind of like my pivots. Colossal. I'm a big Colossal fan. I loved using this mon in Gen 8 VGC. This mon is very fun. I don't know if I'm the biggest like believer in it, but from what I've heard from in the Discord, you are like the best user at Colossal ever. So I'm looking forward to seeing it because I love this mon, and I want to see you do some cool shit with it. I want to see some ranging from like flame body, bulky stuff that just burns everything and makes you miserable to weakness policy steam engine. I want to see the whole. I want to see it all like choice specs. Einhorn's body press. This one gets insane coverage. I think it still gets Scald. I'm not sure. I think it still gets Scald. It's like Earth Power, Solar Beam, Meteor Beam, Rock Polish Meteor Beam could be a set. It's a really cool mon. I'm hyped to see this mon. Gardevoir, pretty solid mon. Really good with like Choice Scarf. You want to be a breaker, you can run Choice Specs. I feel like Choice Scarf Gardevoir is just like really good. Love Trace, how it can just like copy an ability can be really nice for like specific things. You want to like Trace and Intimidate on a mon, or switch into like a Kilowatt Roll, Trace Volt Absorb type of stuff. So I think Gardevoir's really cool mon. Gives you a nice strong like fairy attack and Moonblast. Domfang gives you some hazard control and rapid spin. And also Colossal lets you get up Stealth Rock, which is pretty good. Reveroom, pretty scary with Shift Gear. This monster's scary because I know this just got Temper Flare, so now it can actually hit like other steel types. So this one kind of scary. Terra Fly makes sense because you quad weak to ground. Terra Water just like solid type. Terra Steel makes sense. Solid Mon also absorbs toxic spikes when it comes in, which is nice. Porygon 2, interesting. I'm not really sure what this mon's gonna do. I don't know if it gets teleport to pivot, but just be bulky Eviolite. I guess you could use it to set Trick Room, but you've not really got the best Trick Room abuser. I mean, I guess you could run Trick Room like Colossal maybe. But I'm not really sure what Porygon's going to do other than like just be bulky, maybe just spread T-Wave, or be bulky with like Adaptability Tri-Attack or something. But I could see it being good. And then Leafeon, I don't really know what Leafeon's going to do, to be honest. I've used Leafeon, and it could be alright. It just doesn't get much coverage. If you want to bring some heat, I recommend Copycat Leafeon, because that's really funny. You could run like, I don't know, Ceaseless Edge Samurott when it dies, and then send in Ceaseless Edge Leafeon with Copycat. That could be kind of fire. But yeah, overall, pretty solid team. I'd say it's like just these top four mons are like the big threat. These are all very scary combo, and I don't see like one weakness that just sort of. Oh, I will say maybe like I mean these top three sort of sharing a fairy weakness might be something that's like good against this team. But then saying that, you also have Skarmory's a steal, but I don't know, Skarmory. I don't know if it's the best fairy resist because it's not that specially bulky. But then you also have Colossal's a good fairy resist, Reveroom's like an incredible fairy resist, Gardevoir resist fairy and has good special bulk, so and Porygon 2 is bulky, so I mean like a lot of your best mons are like weak to fairy, but then I think you've got a decent like amount of like mons down here that sort of like help cover that weakness. So I think that should be completely fine. So I think that's a pretty solid team. And then we got the Ohio Honch Crows. So this is my week one battle. So we've got Gliscor, incredible mon. It's annoying. It's very adaptable, you know. Annoying, toxic sets, sword stance, offensive, defensive U-turn, set up spikes and hazards. Incredible mon. Ogerpon, this mon hits hard as hell. This mon's strong, and Firegrass is very hard to switch into. You know, you can't switch a bulky water in unless you get grass nuked. You can't switch grass or you get fire nuked, or like a steel. It's like grass fire offensively hits like combos really well. Mew can do anything you want for your team, so that's going to be hard to prep for. I'm interested to see what Mew sets you come up with, because obviously I feel like, you know, Mew you can do pretty much anything with. I don't think it got like healing back, but I mean it can still kind of try and heal because I think it's like Drain Punch and Leech Life and that. But I mean you could run all sorts of Mew like setup and that. Decidueye I think is an interesting Terra Captain. I don't know if Decidueye is that good to be honest. I don't really know. I've not really seen it in a draft especially as a Terra Captain. So I'm not really. I think I've seen it in a draft not as a Terra Captain. It wasn't great, but maybe as a Terra Captain it'll be a bit better. So I think it's like it's kind of slow. It hits hard but not super hard, and it's like a bit bulky but not super bulky. But you know, I know you've changed this to Terra Ghost. I think so. Terra Ghost Poltergeist will hit hard as hell. I mean, Terra Fire makes sense because you're on a Sun team, so that you get Sun boosted Terra Blast. I don't know why Terra Flying. Maybe for like Brave Bird is my guess. But I mean, I'd say the best thing about the situation is you don't know it's going to be special. Well, as someone that's prepping to fight this, I don't know if this is going to be special or physical because it could be either. It could be, you know, Leaf Storm Shadow Ball, or it could be Leaf Blade with like Poltergeist. Not a clue. Walking Wake, huge threat, especially because you have Torkoal in the Sun. And, you know, it's not just limited to choice specs, a boost or whatever. You know, it can run Steam Eruption, Flamethrower, Draco, hit hard as hell. But, you know, it got not scale shot, I mean, it probably has that, but it got knockoff and flip turn now, so, you know, you can use this to sort of bait in switch-ins and then just flip turn out into a better matchup. Because this mon, you kind of have to respect it when it's in Sun and sort of play around it. Torkoal, good Sunsetter. Torkoal I like more than Ninetales, gives you Rapid Spin, Stealth Rock. Love Plume, spreads burns. Uh, yeah, Torkoal's just, you know, you've just got it for Sun. Sandy Shock's pretty solid, mon. Electric Ground is pretty good. You know, gets Volt Switch, can set screens, Iron Defense Body Press, pretty adaptable. Glowbro, I think, is pretty interesting. I don't know if Quick Draw is legal. I think it is. I'm not 100% on that. But just as like a regen mon's pretty good. 10 pointer for like a pretty bulky regen mon's nice. And then down here, we got Terra's Zangoose and Ariados, which I'm not keen on this Terra Ariados. Like, I like Ariados. I don't think it's great, especially with these Terras. I think if you want it to be Terra Ariados, because I'm assuming it's mainly here for just Sticky Web, I'd maybe just go like Terra Dark or Ghost just to buff like your Sucker Punch or Shadow Sneak, because this one's slow as hell and it's not bulky. So I think maybe just being able to Terra Boost like a priority might help if you do like a Sword Stance. I don't know, maybe you go something crazy like a Fell Stinger to finish like a opponent lead off, and then or like sword stance into sucker punches could be cool. Zangoose, I think, is like a decent breaker. It's an alright speed tier. I think it's around like 80, 85-ish. I think it's 85 is my guess. Gets, Terra Normal makes sense. Toxic Boost Facades. Terra Dark, I'm not sure why it's Terra Dark. I don't know if Zangoose gets knockoff. Maybe it's just like strong knockoffs. I'm not 100% on that. And then Terra Poison, I guess that's like resist fighting. But yeah, Zangoose, it's going to hit hard. Tauros, I think Tauros is just fine. I don't think it's the best, especially because it's not like a Terramon. But I mean, it gives you an Intimidate Mon, and it's fast. It's 100 base speed. And then Glaceon, I don't think is great as well. Just kind of slow, bad defensive type. Overall, I think this one is like I think this one is like really good offensively, but I think this team has a lot of really big defensive holes in my opinion. Just because I go like, you've got some good defensive mons like obviously Gliscor and like Slowbro's pretty good. Mewcat can be whatever you want. But I think this team's offense is insane. You got Sun boosted Ogerpon, Sandy Shocks, and Walking Wake are going to be hit hard as hell. But I think these lower, I think everything after this Zangoose are kind of not that good. And I also think this team is lacking in key resistances. So the first thing that jumps out at me is no Dragon Resist. So, I think that's going to be really hard against, Latios just and Dragapult and whatnot just come in, drop a Draco, and you've not really got an answer for it. Especially because you haven't got like a Terramon that can Terra Fairy either. So I think Dragon's going to be a big issue. And the other one I think is because you've not got like some of those key types like Steel and Fairy, you struggle for other key resistances like normal. I don't normal. You've got your only like sort of immunity or resistance to normal is Decidueye, but if you're tearing that into something that isn't Ghost, then you don't have anything to resist like just strong normal attacks. As well as for Dark, your only natural resist is like Tauros, which I think is not great when like two of your best mons like Terra Decidueye and Mew are weak to it, and Globra. So in my opinion, I'd maybe like swap these bottom three for like I don't know, just like a strong like Steel or Fairy. But I think this team is like I think this team could definitely work, but I think you're gonna have to play very hyper offense because your your defensive backbone is quite exploitable by like certain types. But I think offense wise, this team is gonna be insane. And yeah, I think that covers all the teams. I don't have like a tier list thing up, but I'll quickly just do like a. Oops. I think the best teams off the top of my head are probably like these top two. These top two here are pretty strong. I think Ridiculous Reuniclus is pretty strong. I think mine's pretty strong. I don't know. I'd say it's like I don't know. I'd say mine's top three. I'd say maybe like top five. Maybe top three, maybe third. I'm not sure. I think I'd definitely put these two as like the top two teams. Uh, yeah, I think. I think yeah, Ridiculous Reuniclus. These are just like in all hit hard is going to be strong. I think the top four of this team are going to be threatening. Overall, I think we've all got really solid drafts. And yeah, I'm excited for the season to start. So thanks for listening, guys, and I'll see you next time. Peace.